Hello, everybody, and welcome to RLIS Season 4. I'm incredibly excited for this one. My name's Rez, and I'm joined this evening in the casting booth by Dave Forehead and Enwrong. How are you both?
Very, very good. Thank you very much, Rez. You're right. This is probably the highlight of the season. Everyone's favorite moment. Very, very exciting and looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the reactions of a few individuals that I have my eyes on. Whether they'll be positive or negative, I'm not so sure, but this will be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, we are also joined, of course, by 5 of our 6 managers this season, just Mull, who couldn't make it this evening. And I just want to start off by asking a couple of questions based on what we saw last season. And I just want to start things off. Aidan, you came into last season and you said your expectations were to have one team win, 2 teams make the final, and 3 teams make playoffs. In the end, you managed to get 3 teams in the playoffs. You had 1 in the final and 1 won. Were you happy with how last season turned out?
For the most part, yes. I would have preferred for me and the All-Star boys to go a bit further, but I was very happy, and I think the expectations are going to increase for this season.
Go on then. What are you hoping for going into this one? Now there are obviously 5 tiers.
I'll keep the goal of 2 finalists. I hope both of them win it this time, and we'll go for 4 out of the 5 tiers make playoff.
Fair enough. Well, then, we're going to be getting onto the draft shortly. I don't know, Enwrong Forehead, have you got anything you want to ask the casting boys, or the managers who are joining us this evening?
Yeah, Cans, do you think you'll actually do anything in All-Star this season? Because your performance last season was a disgrace, to be honest.
Well, we're looking to rectify that terrible situation. Just to make playoffs will make me happy. I don't know, last season was terrible, but I think this season we'd be looking to, contend for the title or high up there.
Cool.
Cool.
I'd like to ask one question of Ryan, because Ryan, we know how much you love your old favorites and how you've picked relatively the same amount of people throughout the seasons. Can we expect the same, something different, or are you going to keep your cards close to your chest?
I think you're going to be in for a treat with my picks, and there's going to be some more loyalty on display. I'll say nothing more than that.
Okay, nice.
Fair enough. I just want to make everyone aware who's watching the stream that we are going to be interacting with you who are watching the stream today. If you want to ask any of the managers a question, make sure in the RLI Discord, scroll down to the comment box channel. We will keep an eye on that and try to answer any of your questions. We're going to get into the draft around about now. We're going to be starting from the bottom in the Rising Star tier, but before we do that, unfortunately there were 5 people who weren't drafted. Obviously that doesn't mean that you're going to be completely out the season. We do often have 1 or 2 dropouts throughout the season, so chances are you will get to play at some point. But the 5 who didn't quite make it this time round, if I can just find my list, I know Otter, Cake Jumper, Loki, and if I can find my list of other people, Cake Jumper, Loki, Otter, Philly Man, and Ultimate. Unfortunately, those 5 weren't drafted this season, but I'm sure at some point they will get a chance to play. We're going to move on without further ado to the Rising Star tier. It's going to be an incredibly exciting one. We're going to get right into it with our first round of players. We are going to have as the last pick, so this is the person who just managed to get into the Rising Star tier. NCabbage picked up Blurry for his Rising Star roster. Then Celtic Tigers Squid, he picked up EPG. Smoke Jesus was chosen for Satanta. Dangerous Gamer was picked up by LovelyCans for the Banshees. Zyno was picked by Ryan for the Saints. And MK was picked by Aidan to start off his draft for the High Kings.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Rez. I have a question straight away here for Aidan. Aidan, have you not seen MK play? Why did you pick him up? I think that's quite questionable, to be honest. I think there was better players in the sub pool.
I picked up MK because I had a few blunders last season with players that I didn't know dropping out and not being as reliable as the ones that you can trust. So I think the factor of me knowing him already is stronger than, someone who could possibly play better, but possibly also not be as reliable.
Sure. Fair enough. Forehead.
Yeah, my one question I think goes towards LovelyCans and Dangerous Gamer. It's a great name, but again, someone who's relatively unknown, I think, out of those 6. Do you feel like you're taking a bit of a gamble, or is there something you don't know that, or you know that we don't?
No, it's more like a gamble. Like I looked at his ranks and it's like consistent champ 1 last or last champ 2, I think, or something last 3 seasons. So I just thought like he'd be the best out of the last third round picks. Like, so yeah, I'm taking a chance, but sure, we see what happens.
Well, Dangerous Gamer, if you're listening in tonight, just know your manager has all the faith in the world in you. Rez, take it away with our next round.
Yeah, we're going to get into the next round here. Starting things off, we have JP for the High Kings, Flood for the Saints. He was picked up by Ryan. Shawnee for the Banshees. Melty Crispy for Satanta. Squid picked up Pogs for the Celtic Tigers. And finally, Cloudy was chosen to join the Fomorians by Encannon.
Yeah, my question here is to Ryan. Ryan, you have a very select group of friends, and Flood, I believe, is one of them. Is that why you picked him up, or was it actually based off of skill?
Well, looking at the rest of the names across the board there, Pogs aside, I don't really know any of them, so I think Flood is as capable as the rest of the names you see, and Zino is also in that select group of friends, so the old chemistry.
Cool. Forehead.
Yeah, no, I mean, very good points there, Ryan. Squid, I'll throw this over your way. Pogs, we've seen in and out. I don't think he played last season, but he's played other seasons of RLIS. Are you hoping his experience, if nothing else, will help this season, considering who you've got kind of around him and in that tier?
Oh, yeah, of course. Pogs is a very nice guy. I've spoken to him quite a bit. He, of course, was a manager last season, so he knows how RLIS is ran, and I thought he'd be a very good captain for the tier.
Yeah, no, very good point.
Well then, thank you very much, Forehead and Enwrong, for those questions. We're going to get on to the first round of Rising Star. We're going to start things off with Evoke, who was picked up by Encannon for the Fomorians. Raha will join join Satanta, should I say. Ryan will join Squid-G for the Celtic Tigers. Fusical was picked by LovelyCans for the Banshees. Bass was chosen by Ryan to join the Saints, and J-Clone will be rounding things out for the High Kings.
Yeah, thanks, Rez. J-Clone, of course, legendary player from Tipperary, #1 pick in Rising Star. Encannon, I have a question for you. I think Evoke is one of the most questionable picks in this draft. Him being a first rounder, what's the decision-making process here on this?
Well, like a lot of my Rising Star picks where like I don't really know the players too well. So I mostly looked at rank, and there were a couple players that had like maybe a higher 2s rank or so, but I was pretty happy with the 3s, and I seen that he was a fairly active player in the game as well. So if he's
Sure.
willing to grind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he is active, and he's active in the community, and that obviously helps. And you'll have a dedicated player anyway. Forehead, a question for you, or your question rather.
Yeah, I think my question goes towards LovelyCans here. Physical is a very interesting choice, but I do approve, actually. I think as a first-time pick, he could be very, very beneficial. He's one of the few players on the server who really, really likes the idea of one's tournaments and one's leagues and such. Did that contribute really to your reasoning for picking him, or was it more of a I need someone who's top level?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like, yeah, his ones rank, was higher than most people in this tier. So I think he will do damage in the ones game mode, especially, and as well, like I think he'd be fine for 3s and 2s. Like I think all round he's one of the best. Personally, I think. But shall we just have to see?
Well, we do have a first question coming in from the community from the comment box channel. This one's coming in from Dormer. When you're drafting players that you don't know, do you base your decision purely off their rank, or do you sort of ask around the community to get more information? I'm going to go to Aidan on this one. We're not going to go through all the managers for the sake of time, but Aidan, how do you manage your picks for the low rank players?
If there's someone that I don't know that I'm interested in picking up, usually I will sort of ask around, see if anyone's seen them play. If anyone hasn't, then you've just sort of got to wing it, or you don't take the risk and you go for someone that you do know. It's a difficult decision, but sometimes you just got to go for it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Obviously, you picked up J-Clone, who was arguably one of the stronger players in this tier by a fair margin. Do you think that the fact you had the first pick in this tier, do you think that really gave you the opportunity to find that player who just missed out on Ascending Star?
Yeah, I think so. If I remember correctly, I was quite lucky with this round because I obviously got first pick, but I was also quite close in Ascending Star as well. So getting first pick allowed me to get sort of someone that could have made Ascending Star and put them in the first round Rising Star as well. So it's always a positive.
Very interesting. Enwrong, anything to add?
No. Some of the picks are a little bit interesting. Squid, I can see why you picked up Pogs. For me, Pogs should have been a first round pick. A lot of the other picks are okay. I'm surprised Bass wasn't in Ascending Star, to be honest. Every other pick though I can kind of get. Again, Jake, I'm a little bit surprised. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I don't really see massive issues in this tier. I think the front runners will probably be Kansas team. It looks quite strong, at least on MMR on paper, but you can't rule out any team with Bass on it either. So.
Well then, it's an incredibly interesting Rising Star tier. We'll have to see how this pans out. Obviously, it's a tier where we often don't know quite a few of the players. Lots of new boys coming in, which is always fantastic, always allows for some shocking results going through the season. We're going to continue on, and we're going to move on to our new tier, Ascending Star. Obviously, due to numbers, we had 95 sign-ups this season, 90 of which have been drafted. That means that we're going to be having 6 orgs throughout the 5 tiers, and we're going to get into things right away with this new tier. So in Ascending Star, and this is going to be starting as we did before from the 3rd round, as the first pick for the Banshees, LovelyCans picked up Jenga Benga. Adequate Llama was chosen by Merle for Satanta. Gilzo for the High Kings. Poo McPoo for the Saints. Dave Forehead was picked up by Squid-G for the Celtic Tigers. And then to round out the 3rd round of Ascending Star, Poke with a Stick was brought in by NCabbage for the Fomorians.
Oh, well, all I'm going to say here is anyone that picked up Dave Forehead on their team is a very questionable individual. So, Squid-G, I think you have to unmute and answer yourself here. Why on earth did you pick up the man who's literally known as the parking simulator of RLI?
That's a fair question. I absolutely love playing with Forehead. I think it just makes the game so much more enjoyable. And even if we do terribly, I'm going to have such a blast playing this season. And I don't think we will do terribly because Forehead is a surprisingly good player.
That is, I think, the nicest thing I've ever heard from anyone said about anyone else. So, well done, Forehead. There, your move, Forehead. Who do you want to question?
You know what? I just say, well done, Squid. You got yourself on the right track to a winning team. Don't mind Enwrong at all. Yeah, I mean, some really good picks to be fair in this round. The one thing I'd like to mention, because Mull's not here, but he did give us a description of his players, and he did say about Lama that he was really good from last season, and I mean, he's a winner from last season, so why would you not pick him up? But just to give Mull a voice, I thought I'd throw that in there. Aidan, I have to comment on my old teammate Gilzo, and I want to know why anyone would think Gilzo's a good choice in any pick, and I'd like to know why you thought Gilzo would be a good choice as your 3rd player.
Gilzo is a great player on the field. He was cheated out of playoffs by young Margo last time, and I'm going to make sure that's not happening again. He's got 2 solid teammates with him this time, and he's going to take it all the way, baby.
Well played, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So we're going to move on to the 2nd round now. As Squid alluded to just a second ago, he is a player manager for the 2nd round for the Celtic Tigers. Next, Taste Rainbows was picked up by Mel for Satanta. Aaron will join the Fomorians. Donal was picked up by Aidan for the High Kings. Ryan chose Paradox to join the Saints, and rounding out round 2, SPF will join the Banshees.
Yeah. Well, Mull isn't here, and I haven't seen the answer to the question, but I think Taste Rainbow is a second-round pick in Ascending Star. He's one of the worst picks and worst decisions, I think, in all of RLIS. So I'm not going to go into this a bit more. I'll be shattering Taste's ego later on. For me, I'm going to go to NCabbage here. Aaron has recently learned how to play the game because he's been dawdling around the Champ 2 for the last 12 seasons, I think. What made you pick him up?
I think really last season's performance really, edged me towards him, making the grand final, of course, and was unlucky to come up against Solo. I think it could have been a much different
Whoa, whoa,
series
whoa, whoa,
without
whoa, whoa,
Solo.
whoa. Hold on a second. Did you watch the grand final, Encannon? Aaron was the worst player on the field by miles.
Yeah, okay, but he got to the grand final. All right, that's the important bit. I think he did pretty well in his 3 games, and in general, I was pretty happy with him.
Fair enough. Aaron agrees with me, by the way, just so you know. So I think he's questioning you as well, Encannon. But that's fine. Forehead.
Yeah, I think I'll throw my question over to Ryan, picking Paradox and, of course, Pumaku in the 3rd round. Paradox is someone who's obviously got a lot of experience in RLIS, which is brilliant. Do you hope that he can be a sort of a team leader within that Ascending Star when we're seeing slightly more experienced faces come into this tier?
Yeah, Paradox was a great captain last season, so it's always nice to have that covered if he's willing to do it again, which I hope he is. And I think he is best suited to being on a team where he doesn't have to carry the load. So I'm hoping the first round pick that you're going to see is going to be doing a lot of that.
Well,
Very good.
thank you very much to all the managers. We're going to go on to the first round of Ascending Star now. We're going to start things off with Liam, who joins the Banshees, Dylan, who joins the Saints, Encannon picked up Wrench to join the Fomorians, Krolic will join the Celtic Tigers alongside Squid-G and Dave Forehead, and then, of all people, Redport will join the High Kings, and Welsey will round out the tier for Satanta.
Aidan. Why? Why on earth did you pick up Redport? He is literally one of the worst players I've ever seen to play this game. Tell us, what was the logic here? Or in fact, what was your argument devoid of logic for that?
See, Rob, I've only got 3 words for you. I'm on the port, baby. He's gonna take it all the way. Redport.
That's 4.
My man
That's
is
4
gonna lead the
words.
boys. We're gonna get a massive win. Easy dubs. Redport's the best player to ever grace the game.
I guess to ask the question seriously, Redport obviously based off of rank, he's probably deserving to be in that round, but Redport I don't think is I think of that level in my opinion. So was it just done off of the fact that you really like Redport? Because I mean, who doesn't? Or was it actually based off of the fact that you think he can keep up at this level?
I mean, it's a bit of both. I've played with Redport myself, and I can see it. I can see him being here. He just needs a bit of a push forwards in the right direction, and Donal and Gilso are 2 capable players to do that for him. So I think it's deserved.
Perfect. Thank you. Forehead.
Squid, since you picked me, a little bit of a team talk, right? It's just between you and me. There's no one else here at the minute. A little bit of a team talk. Krolic as your first round, I find interesting, to say the least. How are we going to spin this? How are we going to play this so that it looks like we have a strong team?
I mean, he would have been absolutely destroyed if I didn't pick him, to be fair. But fair enough. Some people might think there's better players in the first round, but I've played with Krolic. We've got a bit of synergy going on, and he's a great guy. I just didn't want to hurt his feelings.
You know what? It's a fair point. I can get behind that. I'm sure he'll have a good season regardless.
Yeah, I just want to ask another question of Aidan. Just looking down his team, if we sort of look at this tier as a whole, we see a handful of players who most people won't know in RLI. We're looking at like some Jenga Benga, Liam to a degree. And if I look at Aidan's team, Redport, Donal and Gills are 3 pretty predominant figures in RLI. Did you sort of feel that the fact that you've got 3 players who have shown sort of that they're active and loyal to RLI, do you think that's going to really help, especially with activity at this level?
Absolutely. It's always hard to get people around for the time. So if you know what you're doing and you pick the right people who are always around, then it's not going to be as much of an issue. Redport, Donal and Gilso are 3 amazing players for it. They're always around, so it'll be grand.
Fantastic. Enwrong forehead. We've seen the whole tier. How do you think things are going to pan out?
I think the Saints are going to struggle massively. They don't have a strong backbone or a strong spine to that team. Puma Poo's going to get found out. I think he's easily the weakest player in this tier. Aidan's picked up a good team. Encannon's picked up a decent team. I mean, Poke and Wrench on a team. That's a scary team. I would have said Satanta had a decent team. Wellesley's good. Llama's decent. Rainbow's, we will say no more. I don't know what Jenga Benga is like, but at least with SBF, you're probably going to have ones down. I'd be worried about the Celtic Tigers team when I look at the team that has a forehead, Krolic, and Squid. So Squid's clearly trying to throw here. I think the Saints will be found out anyway. I think I'll be interested to see how they do. But look, I'll talk to Ryan about that one later. Forehead, you.
Well, just to counter that comment on the Celtic Tigers, thank you very much. I am delighted to be part of that team. I think in 3s and 2s we'll have a very good chance when I stay out of the way of things. And I think just looking across, I have to agree to an extent. I think Encannon does have a very good team there. I think he's got a couple of one specialists, as well as he's got. I think that Fomorian's team is probably the most well-rounded in the sense it's got 1s, 2s, and 3s looking pretty solid. As for anyone who looks particularly weak, I'm not so sure. I would say maybe the Saints or the Banshees, but I'm going to have to play them at some point, so I better put my money where my mouth is and actually win those games.
Well, fair enough. We've seen the bottom 2 tiers. Things are going to start to look very spicy indeed. We're going to be moving on to the Shooting Star tier. And Enwrong Forehead, I just want to hear from you before we go up there. Do you think that one of the tiers we've seen so far really stands out as being particularly competitive?
For me, I think both tiers are quite competitive. I think Ascending Star is more competitive, to be honest. It's more well-balanced here. There's only like one standout player I would say it's probably Wellesley, but then again, from what I remember, I don't think his team did particularly well last season. I think they got absolutely destroyed in Shooting Star. But I think that's probably because of Squid. So it's hard to say really. I don't know. Look, it's too hard to call. I think Rising Star could easily be dominated by the Banshees, but it's too early to call.
You didn't need to give me the drive-by, man.
Forehead, do you feel like that's sort of a feature of the lower tiers? That sort of it can be a lot more sort of thrown up in the air, and at the higher levels, it's easier to predict.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think with the lower tiers, it's a lot more prone to one person like carrying or having a really big impact on the game. And as you go up and up and up, it's more of a team effort and a more of a collaborative thing. I think both tiers, though, Rising Star and Ascending Star, are equally competitive, if that makes sense. I think a lot of the players are very closely together in terms of rank and skill. So I don't think we'll see many sort of runaway teams within those 2 tiers.
Well, we're going to move on. We're going to start off next with the 3rd round of Shooting Star. Obviously, Ryan is a player manager in this tier. Obviously, for the Saints, the next pick, Clover, is going to be joining Fomorians. He played 2 seasons ago. He was out last season, but he's back. Zexel is going to join the Banshees. Mel picks up Artemis for Satanta. Jata Prey will join the High Kings, and Geno will join Celtic Tigers.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest diamond here in the rough would be Clover. So for Encannon, I'm surprised they got that far without Clover being picked up, but obviously this was an obvious choice for you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was also surprised to see, especially his rank still available. Like it was kind of a no-brainer decision to get him.
And would you have been tempted to get anyone else? I mean, the only other player there I can see on this list is kind of at the same level. Ryan can be in 2s, but Jada Prey is the only one in 3s that would be at the same level. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it was kind of between them two, but I was definitely edging towards Clover a lot more.
Perfect. Forehead. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of things there, and there's nothing major that I see as sort of a hugely interesting. I suppose, Ryan, you're gonna have to play yourself in this tier. Do you think this is a tier, because you're obviously the 3rd round? Do you think this is a tier you're going to be able to keep up with well? Do you reckon you're going to have to tactically plan out when you play things, or do you reckon you're going to be able to keep up the pace and take anyone on?
I think I should be well capable, to be honest. Like Rob said, I'm more suited to the 2s. I think I did quite well in the 2s last season, and I think, if anything, from what I remember when I was drafting, I think the quality of Shooting Star might have dropped a little bit, but time will tell.
I just want to ask a quick question of Squid. Obviously, he picked up Geno, who I think went under the radar a little bit. He's actually Grand Champ in both 3s and 2s, and is not far off 1603. So, Squid, do you think you sort of found a player that went under the radar for so many other managers?
Absolute no-brainer, man. Just checking them on the paper, I personally think Jenna's probably one of the better players out of them. Clover could be the best player, but he did say before the draft that he wasn't going to play much, and he hasn't played in months, which I think a lot of the managers kind of took as a reason to avoid picking him higher up. But down here, Jenna was easily one of the best players to pick.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to round 2, starting off with pronounced Owen for the Celtic Tigers. Next, we're going to have Hoods for the Saints. King Keelan, champion of Shooting Star last season, alongside Crossing Royser, is going to join Jada Prey on the High Kings. NNZB Liam is going to be joining the Banshees. He's picked up by LovelyCans. Ario is chosen by NCabbage for the Fomorians. And Jamingo will round out round 2 of Shooting Star for Satanta.
Great. My question here goes to Cans NNZB Liam. He is seen as a person, from talking to a lot of people in the community, he tilts easily. He has problems with mentality, and that's what's holding him back from going to the next level. Did that come into the decision-making process for you, or was it purely just enough of rank?
Well, he's perfect for my team, isn't he? If that's his characteristics, like
Him and Zexel, the
no,
dream team.
yeah, no, yeah, I seen him in a few scrims, like in Rising Star last season, and I thought he was really good for that tier. Now we all know what happened to his team, last year. You know that probably affected his mentality, but. You know, I seen his ranks again, like, and from some people, like, thought he was a decent pick, like, for second round, so I just went with him.
Cool.
Shook a chance.
No, there's no doubting his ability. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just his mentality. I think a lot of people had
We
concerns.
work on that.
Yeah, well, I think they've been working on that for a while. Cool. Forehead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting choices there, actually. One or two I definitely didn't expect. The one that really jumps out to me, though, is pronounced Owen. Squid, I have to admit, I know very little about this guy in comparison to some of the others, and it'll be his first season in RLIS. Yes, do you want to introduce him to us, if nothing else?
I don't know him personally, but I've heard a lot of very good things from people who I do talk to quite a lot. On paper, he's also another really good player. On his stats, he was a very good ones player. So that was the main reason I picked him.
Well, we're going to move on to the first round of Shooting Studies. Some of the boys will have just missed out on the All-Star tier. Dormer, formerly of All-Star last season, he used to be on Nafina. This time, he is on Satanta. Tierman was brought in by NCabbage for the Fomorians to join Avion Clover. Kian completes the LovelyCans run, the Banshees roster in Shooting Star. Solo is chosen by Aidan to join King Keelan and Jada Prey. Hasko is joining the Saints. Hasko predicting it in chat just a moment ago. And Royser is going to be joining the Celtic Tigers. Enwrong, do you think that's a bit of a scary team, that Celtic Tigers roster?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Royser will make any team better, especially in this tier. I'm surprised Royser missed out on All-Star. He was on the cusp, definitely, and I can see why he was the first pick. Squid made a very good decision picking him up. The team I would have concerns over would be definitely both Satanta and Banshees. I think they look quite weak on paper. That Keen guy I know is quite good. Dormer is a bit questionable. I'd probably say Jamingo's better than him. Yeah, I'd agree with your assessment there, as it's going to be a good team. I know Pronounced Owen does reasonably well in the IEC Cups, but Royser is definitely the most cracked player in this tier.
Yeah, just looking at the teams, some really, really interesting lineups. I suppose one person I want to ask a question of is NCabbage. You have Tierman there and Away, who's fairly unknown, but I know Away has been in server a while. How do you feel these guys are going to gel together? Because I imagine a lot of them haven't played together before.
Yeah, I doubt any of them have played together before, but I can definitely say for like Away, I've playing with him a lot recently. I also was very impressed with how he played in the recent IEC, where we managed to get to the finals, not the grand final, the finals. I thought he really picked up the pace in the threes and really stepped up to any team. Tierman was more of a, just based off rank. I know he's a newcomer, so I'm hoping he can prove his rank. Cool.
I just want to ask a quick question of Ryan. Obviously, you're sort of notorious for picking players who sort of you're friends with, who you know about. Is that sort of a strategic decision to try and boost the chemistry?
Yeah, obviously, this is the third time I've picked Haskell now, but we made finals last season, and I think if Hoodson works out for us, could be going all the way this time.
Interesting stuff. We've seen a whole tier. Obviously, Rob, you mentioned that Setanta and the Banshees might be some of the weaker teams in the tier. I just want to know from you, Enwrong, what do you think of Aidan's the High Kings? Obviously, solo thought by some, at least based on ranked, to be in the All-Star tier. Do you think that Aidan's got lucky to find him at this level, or do you think he's just not quite, or doesn't quite manage it in the big games?
No, Solo's in the right tier. I'm surprised he's a first round pick. Jada Prey should be ahead of him. He's a better 3s and 2s player than Solo. Solo's in the right tier. I think he's a second round pick in my opinion, but he'll be delighted he got actually really close to All-Star in the end. That High Kings team is definitely scary. I kind of judge it based off of third round picks. When you look at Clover, obviously doesn't play the game as much, but he's still decent. I look at Ryan and Geno, and if rumors are to be, true on Geno, he's going to be decent. Ryan's obviously solid enough. Jada Prey, we know, is good at threes. Artemis and Zexel, very questionable at threes. I'd have concerns over those two teams, and that's why I think Setanta and Banshees will be found out. Not because of their first or second round picks, but because of their third round picks. And that's nothing against Zexel and Artemis. I had them both on my team last season, the Shooting Star. It's just that when I look at the other third round picks here, I can't see it happening for them. They're going to have to, and yourself, Rez, you can't win a championship without being good at threes.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, last season I was carried to the championship by Adza and Mayday. Forward, have you got anything to add on this tier as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite an interesting tier, and for me, it does fall in the cracks a little bit of what I do and don't know about the RLIS players overall. It's interesting looking at the Saints and Setanta's lineup in particular. I can't help but feel the managers have gone with players they know over maybe the absolute best choice given the situation. Obviously, Ryan's picked himself. That doesn't really count. I think there's some interesting ones. I think probably the biggest dark horse here will be Fomorian's and NCannon's team. I think they're a little bit unknown, and I'm very excited to see how that tier sort of unfolds.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Enwrong, Forehead, anything to add before we move on to All-Star?
No, I'm happy enough.
Fair enough. So this is where things are really going to start hotting up in the All-Star tier. This is going to be getting really competitive at this point. We're looking for sort of about the 1600 range up to the higher ranks, which we will see in as time progresses. We're going to start things off here for All-Star. It's going to be Fassbender, picked up by Ryan for the Saints. Barzi will join the Celtic Tigers. My Parable, winner of last season, obviously arguably helped significantly by the duo of Waz and Colin. He's joined the High Kings. D Lynch will join the Fomorians. Gitsy King, picked up by LovelyCans for the Banshees. And Gitsy's good friend Naylor will be joining Setanta. Aaron Forehead, what are your thoughts on that?
I have serious question marks on Barzi at this level. He showed it last season. He wasn't good enough to play. We all love Barry, but I think he's in the wrong tier. When I look at the other third round picks, I mean, Parable's a steal. The only reason you'd not pick Parables because it's comms, and I'd say we're gonna have to bring in a rule to stop him from playing if he doesn't pick up comms anymore. Yeah, for me, Barzi is the biggest question here. I don't really have a question to ask as such. It's just kind of a statement for it.
Yeah, I think the one that caught my eye straight away out of that group is Fassbender. I've played with him a tiny bit, and I've seen him play a fair bit, and I know at times he can be different gravy. Ryan, obviously, I'd say you'd be pretty happy with that as a pickup then.
Well, not gonna lie, I tried to get him onto my Shooting Star team because I had obviously Fassi ended up being the last pick, and then there was one pick separating that pick from my first shooting star pick. And as we all know, the draft may have encountered some errors. And I got to redo things, and Fassi is a name that should have been an all-star last season, in my opinion, so didn't make the same mistake twice.
Good stuff. We're going to move on to round 2 now. Starting things off in round 2 is LovelyCans, obviously as a player manager, also Encannon and Aidan as player managers for their respective organisations. Just 3 picks in this round. The latter was Trix, who's joining Naylor for Setanta, Linsk, who's joining the Celtic Tigers with Squid-G, and the last pick of round 2 is Jo for the Saints.
I look at these and I think they're all really good picks. I don't know. I don't really have a question as such. I guess if there was one question, I guess it would be to Ryan. Ryan, why did you pick up jail? What's the reasoning here?
Honestly, just ranks. Didn't see a lot of options really. Obviously, there's 3 player managers in this round, and Jo, while out of his depth last season in Superstar, I think he'll find a nice home in All-Star this season.
Yeah, I agree. Forward.
Yeah, I think my question goes to, well, it kind of goes to the 3 player managers here, but I'll start with LovelyCans. Obviously, you knew you were playing a second round, and now you've got Gitsy King in the bank as well. How do you think you're going to play as a team? Obviously, we don't know your third yet, but how do you think you two are going to combine? Was that a decision making?
No, I think out of all the players that were left, like, I had to grab them up. I had played with him in 6-mans, before a good few times, and no, I think we worked pretty good together. He's a good strong threes player. He's a good twos, and he's all right in ones, but my first pick can handle that. But no, overall, I think he's a good pick. Mentality, we all know between the two of us could be an issue, but we win it.
There'll be a lot of win together, lose together, I
It's
imagine.
grand. It's all good. Like, I'm all for that mentality, man. I
If,
love the salt.
Yeah. Well, listen, if I could also pass that question on to Aidan, and kind of start with Aidan, of course, went with my parable. And we know my parable has some interesting comp choices at times. Do you think that'll affect your play this season?
Maybe. I don't think it's as much as people think it would be. I think it's a real surprise that he's ended up in 3rd round again after winning last season. So it was a really nice pick for me in the 3rd round. I was surprised to get him. Really happy with it.
And then, of course, and kind of what do you make of playing alongside Lynch? And of course, your third, which we will reveal soon.
Never played with D Lynch, but I was pretty happy with the rank he's at, and more so based off of his IEC games, which seemingly I go against him every IEC, and I think he plays pretty well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you both. We're going to move on to the first round here. We're starting off with a man who is making this first venture outside of the top tier of RLIS. A man who is known for his somewhat majestic bald head. A man who is Redport's personal Rocket League trainer and coach. We're starting off with Enwrong, of course, for Setanta. Next up, we have arguably the most questionable pick in all of RLIS. Ryan picked up Crossy, the former shooting star champion from last season. Yet another slightly questionable pick coming in next. Squid-G picked up Epics as his first rounder, joining Linsk and Barzi on Celtic Tigers. Darcy is joining Aidan and My Parable on the High Kings. Elite Spartan is joining the Fomorians with Encannon and D Lynch. And finally, the man who just missed out on Superstar. It was incredibly close and arguably deserves to be there based on his rank. But TU is going to be completing the Banshees roster in All-Star.
I have a number of things I want to say on this round. There are some very questionable decisions, right? All I'm going to say firstly is, being an admin of RLI, I'm in the unique position where I got messaged and I got asked who I wanted as my teammates. So I'm just going to throw that out there so everyone knows. So I basically was able to tell them all who I wanted as my teammates. So I picked Trix and Naylor. So there's no hidden agendas there for anyone else. because I thought those two were really, really good players, especially for the rounds that they're in. I think Naylor's the best 3rd round pick, and Tricks for ones we needed someone in because I'm not going to win it. Crossy, not sure what he's doing in the 1st round. Epics, not sure what he's doing in the 1st round. They're the 2 picks that both their managers should answer for. And TU, I'm not sure what the other managers in Superstar were thinking, but how that man went under the radar. He is better than 3 or 4 people off the top of my head I could give you in Superstar. It's a joke, to be honest with you. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to ask questions. Just going to give a little statement for it. You can ask the questions and be a bit more simple.
Well, I mean, I'm loving that reaction off the start. Right, actually, no, I do want to follow up. I think the managers should have a moment to, I guess, explain themselves, if you want to put it that way. Starting with Squid, picking up epics for your 1st round pick. What was the logic behind that?
I watched quite a few games last season, and I actually really liked how Epics played. And I was happy enough with him. I was happy to pick him over Rob. Just saying.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's fair enough if you want triple commits left, right, and center. I'm not sure if you were actually watching the games last season with your eyes screwed on, but fair enough. We'll see how it goes later on.
I can see that this could already be a feisty RLIS. Nice.
I just have to beat him, Rob.
Ryan,
Easy.
how do we feel about Crossy then as 1st pick? Obviously, he is a champion from last season, but in a lower tier. Arguably a very big step up to make, but we're seeing Solo going to do a similar thing. You think Crossy is ready for this?
I think if Crossy commits time to the game, I can see him definitely being a better 3s player than Epics, probably on par with Darcy, better 2s player than Rob and probably Theo, and one of the better 1s players out of the lot of them, so can't really complain too much.
Yeah, well, listen, I like your style, that there's potential there. It's all about getting that potential out, and that comes down to you as the manager, so no pressure. For myself, and 1 or 2 questions I'd like to actually ask. Enwrong, you obviously gave a little bit of speech about the team you're on anyway, but I'd just like to read something here, because Mull did very kindly send us a description of why he picked most of the players.
Mhm.
And I'd just like to read this one here about Enwrong, because I think it's quite funny. It's Rob. He'll shout at the other 2 lads if they start acting the maggot. No brainer for All-Star. He's more than capable of it. So with that in mind, how much shouting do you expect to do this season?
Probably shouting at Tricks to tell him to shut the frick up because Tricks just doesn't stop talking. I wanted to shout at Naylor. I like playing with Naylor. Every time I play with Naylor, actually, he rotates really well. No brainer. He plays a little bit too slow, but I'm going to be screaming at him to pick up the pace. With Tricks, we'll see. It could argue it's a risk, but last season when I watched him play with Encannon and Barzy, he was carrying 2 very heavy boys there. So I think Tricks is a deserved 2nd round pick in my opinion. Yeah, I delighted that Mull made that comment. Yeah, that's a nice comment, you know.
All right.
Well, yeah.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Yes, similar to Enwrong, I have a bone to pick with a few managers in this tier. So I'll start off, Ryan, I'll start off with you. You mentioned some of the most questionable things I think I've ever heard someone from RLI say. You said Crossy is a better 3s player than Darcy, who held his own in Superstar last season. You said that Crossy is a better 2s player than Tiu, who is something like 17 or 1800 in 2s. You said that Crossy is better than Epics, which is arguably true. They're both very questionable at this level. So, what have you been thinking that's made you pick Crossy ahead of Enwrong, Epics, Linsk, Jo, Tricks, Gitsy King? What were you thinking?
I mean, we all know MMR doesn't matter, Rez. Let's be real here. That's just for a start. Also, you didn't mention how Crossy is definitely a better 1s and 2s player than Rob. No questions. 3s, we don't worry about 3s. 3s happens or it doesn't happen. It's one of those things, It's all about the team chemistry.
Right, fair enough. I'll allow your team to crash and burn with Crossy at the helm. Obviously, he's not much good at Sea of Thieves either. Next up, right, cans, right. So the viewers may not know this. But the All-Star draft had to be redone due to unforeseen circumstances, and you did a thing in the 1st round, or the first time we did this draft, and that was you didn't pick Theo when you had the opportunity to be the first pick. Why? Explain.
Well, my original thought was, I picked up Spartan first because for 1s, especially, but then I looked at everyone. I looked at the sheet and then I saw he was ranks in 3s and 2s. I was like, holy beep! So when I heard then that a certain manager made a complete pigeon of the draft, I was like, thank the Lord God Jesus. So instantly snapped him up straight away, no questions asked. Thank you.
Well, okay, fair enough. So you did mention that there was a manager who made a bit of a pigeon with their first round pick, and I'm going to be coming to them next. And N-Cannon, in the first draft before we did this, you had the second pick in the tier, and as it happened, TU was still left on the table because a manager under the name of LovelyCans didn't pick him. And obviously, being the logical man you are, you picked TU as your first round player. Oh wait, no you didn't. What you did was you picked Jo. Now, by no means is Jo god awful. Jo is okay. Jo can hold his own at this level. But when there's a 1900 threes player and an 1800 twos player still on the table, how can you just pick Jo from that?
Well, loyalty, Rez. I don't know if you know about that, but Jo was a great Fomorian member last season, and I was excited to play with him. That's it.
Fair enough. I'm not even going to question Squid because he picked Epic, so I don't think there's anything more to say about that. So, Enwrong and Forehead, I think I've done enough roasting of the managers for this tier. Is there anything you want to add before we move on to the holy grail of Superstar?
Can't win the league without winning threes. I think a lot of managers forgot that.
I'm just glad that this seems to be a very hotly contested tier. I'm looking forward to see who does well out of it.
Yes, I am equally questionable of some of these picks, but we're going to move on to Superstar. This is what all the players have been aspiring to. Obviously, if your name hasn't been mentioned yet on this stream and you have signed up, then you are going to be here. So, the last person who was picked, obviously we're doing this draft in reverse order, the person who just snuck in to the Superstar tier was Little Dude. He was picked up by Aidan for the High Kings. Next was Carrick Dan, who was picked up by Mole for Satanta. That pick will sort of become clear slightly later on. Next, Demox is making his return to the Banshees after making the final last season. LovelyCans picking him up in his third round. Next up is the former RLIS Season 3 champion. He's arguably one of the best players to ever grace the game. It's me. I was picked by Squid-G in his third round. Next is Arctic, who had a reasonably poor showing last time out. He'll be hoping to bounce back. He's on the Saints. And Wazito, who, despite what everyone in the community has been telling him, he didn't end up in All-Star. He was in Superstar. So, ending on Forehead, what's your view on these picks?
I could go down the route of asking Aidan, why did you pick Little Dude over TU? But there's just no point because most of the managers just don't get it. What I'm going to ask instead is, I guess, bearing in mind who else you had picked, Ryan, what made you go for Arctic? He struggled last season. There are obviously a few critics of him in the chat. So what have you got to say to them?
Well, he's constantly playing the game now. Like he's grinding all the time, and you'll come to see there's a bit of the old Ryan chemistry involved with my later picks, and also I missed out on Waz, which I was a bit disappointed by. But we'll say nothing more on that.
Cool, Forehead.
Yeah, I mean some fascinating picks, and it's interesting to see. I guess Cans, you've brought Demox back into the team. I suppose you're hoping that he can be the solid defensive base once again. Is that the game plan?
Yes, well, I thought he throughout the league, like he actually played really good, especially in the twos, where I think he held his own throughout. Yeah, final things didn't work out for him maybe once or twice, but overall I thought good. But once he sees the next two players I have on my team, I think he'd be happy. He'd be happy because chemistry wise, hint hint.
Cool, I'm happy enough.
Yeah, fair enough. We're going to move on to the second round of picks here. Some slightly questionable ones here, but I'm sure it will all sort of come to fruition later on. So we're going to start things off for the Fomorians, and Cannon picked up Spectre to join Waz. Next up is Colin for the Saints. Obviously, as Ryan mentioned a moment ago, his plans were foiled by N-Cannon. Obviously, he seemed to be intent on bringing the duo of Colin and Waz back for yet another season, but it was not to be. Next up, joining Rez, myself, on the Celtic Tigers is LTX Sam. Next is Walshy, who's joining the Banshees. LovelyCans picking him up. Next is Mug, who remarkably didn't make the first round of picks. He's going to be joining Little Dude for the High Kings. And finally, the 7th pick of the draft overall, it is Jaffa for Setanta.
There are a lot of things here that I have to say about this round. I don't think Mug should be in the second round. I'm not sure if Walshy should, but Walshy didn't really prove it last season. I think with Spectre's performance last season, his team made the final. I don't think he was good last season. He's really weak in threes. He's shown himself to be consistently off the pace. I'm surprised Waz wasn't ahead of him. But then kind of was able to get Waz anyway in the third round, so it didn't matter. Colin, I'm not sure on that one. I would ask Mull why he picked up Jaffa in the second round, but he's not here unless he's got something to say for it. Does he have a comment on why he picked Jaffa?
He does indeed. The main thing he said about Jaffa is, well, he said this about a lot of his players, but he said mechanical beast and a really good player. And Mull loves his play style and was looking for chemistry in the team. So he feels that it'll play together well with Dan and the first round pick, which I won't say just yet.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my only other thing is kind of Mug, really. I guess Mug should be a first round pick. People are going to think of threes, though. And I think Mug consistently has not shown himself to be the best in threes. Yeah, he's won a few IECs, but it's not like he's won all of them like he used to. He didn't win the last LAN. He's won, 3 of the 5 IECs, which is good. But in the other 2, he kind of flopped hard. And he flopped in RLIS last season, I thought. I didn't think he showered or painted himself in great glory. And in RLIS, Mug has underperformed, so I don't think I can see why people would have picked him or not picked him in the first round. For first round, you need a strong ones player. I'm not sure if Mug has that anymore in his locker. So yeah, Farhad, you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you think back to when RLIS started, 3 seasons ago, the idea of Mug and Walshy being a second round pick is mind blowing, and you'd think that would never happen, and here we are, and it has happened. Which is very, very interesting. I'd love to get Aidan's thoughts in particular on it, and how he felt about getting Mug as a second round pick, whether he feels that's a bit of a bargain or whether that's kind of about the right place and expects Mug to put a good shift in.
No, I was really surprised they picked Mug up in the second round. I think he's quite an essential role in this team as well. Once you see the first round, yeah, it's strange to see him this low, but I was really happy to pick him up.
Fair enough. So we're going to get on to the final round of things here. We're going to be starting off with Setanta to complete the roster of Jaffa and Carrickdan. It is no one other than Pengu that is going to be completing the old multicultural Ulsterman roster that I'm sure many are familiar with. Next up is Shallow joining Mug and Little Dude on the High Kings. That is one scary team if ever I've seen one. Next is Red Eyes joining Walshy and D-Mox. That is also a team with some incredible chemistry in the past. Somewhat remarkably, as the third pick, many thought he would have been first, many thought he would have been second, but he's actually ended up being the third pick here. Rob Kiernan, he made the final last time, joining LTX Sam and myself for the Celtic Tigers. Panda was picked for the Saints. He's going to be joining Colin and Arctic. And finally, in a somewhat bizarre turn of events, many didn't think it would happen, but it has. The newcomer to the Irish Rocket League scene, Yem, was the first pick of the entire RLIS draft. Enwrong forehead. What do you have to say about that?
My God, I have so many things that I want to say right now. You wouldn't believe. I could probably make my own podcast, which I might do at some stage, but I was told not to do that anymore, just to stop being abused. I would say teams that are going to struggle here straight away will be Fomorians. They're going to struggle big. Yem cannot play threes, from what I've heard. I don't care how good he is at ones. He's not as good as Rob Kiernan, so he shouldn't have been picked above him. I don't understand why Panda would be picked ahead of Rob Kiernan in threes, because Rob Kiernan is good at threes, but he's not that good, and he needs to get that out of his system because he's shown it in a few IECs now. Pengu, I'm surprised he's ahead of Jaffa. I wouldn't have had him that high up, and he's not as good in ones and twos as he used to be, but he did win an IEC. Walshy, Red Eyes, D-Mox, that's a dream team, I guess, on paper. But I think Walshy's better than Red Eyes, so but they'll be delighted to play with each other, and Walshy will be absolutely Walshy will be having fun tonight. I'll tell you that. He'd be absolutely happy out with himself. Shallow should not be ahead of Mug. no matter what. 3s is the most important game mode. 1s is important. That's why you want to pick your first round off of, and 2s as well. But 3s is the most important. Mug should have been ahead of Shallow. Shallow's not a first round 3s player. He's not even a second round 3s player, I don't think. But Yam is definitely the most questionable pick. Cannon, what on earth was going through your mind when you decided to pick a complete nobody ahead of Panda, Rob Kiernan, Mug, Walshy, Jaffa, those kind of players?
You know, I won't lie, bit of a gamble, but based on MMR, he looked very good. Quite strong in ones. Obviously, it's not, you know, Rob Kiernan level or Shallow level in ones, but quite strong. 3s and 2s also looked quite good. I'm not sure, you know, why you were saying he was questionable in 3s when, you know, a day before the draft he had the highest 3s rank, as far as I know, out of everyone. So yeah, you know, he's unknown, but you know, everyone's got to start somewhere. You know, maybe it's going to be the season.
Cool. We'll see how he goes. I heard he dropped 80 points in ones the other day. So, and Cannon, I think you may have made a wee
That
error there.
happens to the best of us. Yeah.
True. It does. I mean, I've never played one, so I wouldn't know what that's like. But yeah. Forehead. We can come back at the end. I can say more of my thoughts on this. But Forehead, what have you got to ask?
I mean, I love this first round so much. I've just been smiling the whole way through since Res started. Yeah, there's a lot of teams I love to look at, and some of them that are not madness, but they're quite out there. Yem, obviously, huge center of attention, and Cannon. That has to be the biggest roll of the dice I think we've seen. I'm glad we got the best to last. I know he's not here, but I just want to say about Muld's team, I do quite like it to an extent. I love the fact he's aimed at that chemistry. He mentioned it in his notes, and in terms of the order of picks, he was able to get Penguin Jaffa one after the other. So, I mean, I feel like he's played it fairly well, all things considered. And of course, LovelyCans' Banshees team. I mean, that team is a massive blast from the past. And I hope they do very, very well. I want to direct my question at Squid, though. I do want to give the managers a chance to talk. I want to direct my question at Squid. Rob Kiernan, even though you're only third in the first round of picks, Rob Kiernan as your top choice and then LTX Sam a second. You must be fairly happy about that.
I couldn't believe it whenever Rob was still third pick. I 100% expected him to go as first pick, so there was no question. He was my first pick, 100%. Whenever it came around to the second pick, there was another person who got taken one before, which was Mug. So that would have been the dream team. But LTX Sam is incredible. Played insanely well for me last season. Was a fantastic captain. So I'm very happy with that. And then putting Rez in with that, our 3s team is going to be incredible.
Yeah, you know what? I would agree.
Agreed.
I just want to ask Ryan. You obviously mentioned earlier that you were a bit frustrated that Waz was taken away from you. So obviously, when you had sort of the option, I believe at the point when you picked Arctic, there was still obviously myself, Demox, Carrickdan, and Little Dude still available. What made you put Arctic above the 4 I just mentioned?
Well, Panda and Arctic have been known to play together, so whenever I couldn't get Colin and Waz, you know, next best thing.
Fair enough. So I just want to go to Aidan. Obviously, you won last season in Superstar Aidan, and you have got probably the most terrifying duo in the whole of RLIS in the form of Shallow and Mug. How do you think Little Dude is going to sort of fit into rotations there?
I think Little Dude is a person that can play up to the people that he's with. Seen it before, obviously he won All-Star when that was the top tier with me and Red Eyes. So I have a feeling that he's going to manage to do it again and pull off the top tier win. And he's going to be very capable alongside Shallow and Mug, who I think are 2 first rounders. So it's amazing for me.
Fair enough. Enwrong Forehead, we've seen the whole draft now. Do you think there's a particular manager that's sort of come sort of the best from this?
I would say when I looked at it on paper, I think Cans did very well for himself across all tiers. I didn't think he had a particularly weak tier anywhere. I was quite impressed with how Cans picked his team across the board. I think the weakest picks were probably N-Cannons, in my opinion. I thought some of them were quite strange. Ryan also in the earlier ones made some really weird decisions. I thought putting loyalty and friendship above the skill of these players On the other hand, I think Aidan has used his head and he's picked up some really good players across the tiers. Mole has had a few dodgy picks here and there. And Squid's picks got better as they went on. I felt like earlier on, or the further on the draft he went, the more dodgy they kind of got. So that's kind of it really. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be one hell of a tussle. You got some cracked ones players, twos and threes players in this superstar tier. I can't wait to see the egos getting absolutely bashed about here. It's going to be fun to watch, and yeah, we're gonna have to get more mods. I'd say. What do you reckon?
Forehead. What do you sort of agree with what Enwrong's just said, or do you think that there are other managers who have sort of also pulled a blinder?
I agree to an extent. Firstly, I have to back up Squid picking me. That's a solid choice. So well done there. Well done, that man. I disagree a bit with what you said about Flamorians. I think Cannon's had some good picks. I think he's rolled the dice a lot more than most. Obviously, yeah, it was the standout option or the standout example. But I think there's some other ones where it could go one way or another. I agree that Aidan overall has had some pretty good picks. And I think Mull hasn't done too bad in most of the tiers. They would be kind of my main comments.
Fair enough. We do have another question coming in from the comment box. This one is from Barzi, directed to Squid-G. For 3 of your tiers, you've picked 2 staff members on your team. What was your inspiration for picking all these staff members?
Well, as everyone knows, it can be a bit annoying during the season if you don't have players that speak, if you don't have players that save replays, or they don't know how RLIS is ran. So I had captaincy in mind, and also I know all the mods quite well, and I know they're very good guys. So whoever's going to be playing with them is going to have a blast. Like that's the main reason for Rocket League IS anyway. Just to have some fun. It's not like you're not trying to make like crazy money. You're just here to have a laugh, get to know some people, and there's no better way to do it than do it with mods.
Fair enough. Well, I think we can now go across the managers and just sort of get final thoughts from them. I'll start with Encannon. How were you sort of content with how your draft went, or have you got some regrets?
No, I'm pretty much happy with how it went. Especially I had thanks to Aidan the little restart in All Star. I think I corrected the team a bit. But no, I'm pretty happy. I think a lot of this doubt is unwarranted. I think you're going to be surprised.
Fair enough. Aidan, do you have any regrets?
Absolutely no regrets at all. I think the best pick of the whole draft was me managing to swipe red paw in ascending. I'm excited to see how the season's going to play out, and I think we're going to get massive victories all around.
Go on, Lovelycans. Were you sort of happy, especially with the chemistry you got in Superstar? Do you think you pulled a bit of a blinder with this one?
I think this season overall, I think I'm ecstatic with the drafts. Like I have basically Yort in Superstar, and can we just say Mupp in chat for Aidan for the complete balls he made of the draft for All Star?
Come on, you didn't realize it either. Come on.
Yeah, none of us did Aidan, but like, but no, like I think throughout the whole draft, I think I did pretty good, and we'd be fighting for nearly playoffs in all divisions, and probably a final in half of them, hopefully. So yeah.
I would ask Mull, but he's not here, and I'm sure he'd say something along the lines of all my players are absolute weapons. So we're gonna go on to Ryan for the Saints. Were you happy with how your draft went?
Honestly, not really, but sure, look, I'm taking a bit of the opposite approach to the rest of the managers. I'm not gonna portray the false confidence. I'll just leave it until the season's over,
Fair enough.
Yeah, about
Lastly,
false, huh?
Squid, are you happy with how things went in the end?
I'm over the moon about it. I think I've got the best team by far.
Well, it seems that the competitive spirit has been drawn out of everyone here. We are going to end the stream now. Thank you very much to Enwrong and Dave Forehead for joining me on the cast desk. Also, thanks to managers Squid-G, Ryan, LovelyCans, Aidan, and Encannon for joining us to answer questions. Thank you to everyone who put questions in the comment box to pose to our managers. keep an eye on the RLIS announcements chat. More will be announced, especially regarding my beautiful spreadsheet that's still a work in progress. That will be announced shortly. Thank you very much for watching. We've also hit 100 viewers, 100 concurrent viewers for the first time in RLI history this evening. So thank you everyone very much for that. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and goodbye.
Bob.